Hey guys, it's Stacy here. Welcome to my channel, Life's a Project. So I'm out here in the garden space and I thought I'd give you a garden walkthrough just to show you how the things are growing and how plants are coming along. And I thought maybe I would also do a little bit of harvesting. So starting in this container, if you have been following my channel, you'll know that I have a couple of indeterminate tomato plants growing in this container. Now I have a brandywine. And you can see plenty of tomatoes growing on here. So that plant is looking good. Now this one is doing fantastic. It is a red cherry tomato plant. And you can see tons of tomatoes on here and tons of flowers. And down here it's really exciting that the tomatoes are starting to turn red, so they are starting to ripen. I just cannot wait to taste some of these fresh tomatoes from my garden. So moving on to the next container, I have a couple of indeterminate tomato plants growing in here as well. The first one here, the same as the last container, the red cherry tomatoes, and just look how many clusters of these little cherry tomatoes are on here. There are tons of tomatoes growing on here. I cannot wait. And again, tons of flowers. And then an Abe Lincoln tomato plant. Tons of tomatoes on here as well. Just super happy with how these tomato plants are doing in my garden. Just so beautiful. I just cannot wait to taste of those. And my marigolds that I started from seed are doing fantastic as well. I need to do a little deadheading, but anyway, to the next container here, you may notice these two trellises. If you have not seen that video where I built these two A-frame trellises, really simple and inexpensive to do. And they should work great supporting these vine crops. I have a couple of watermelon plants here, and then a third watermelon plant that I was going to thin and I just wanted to save, but it has bounced back. I thought it was a goner. I shared that with you in a past video, but it is starting to grow and perk up there. So this cantaloupe plant, I have a couple growing in this space, and this one is doing fantastic. A lot of growth it has put on in such a short period of time. You can see tons of flowers and also its little tendrils. So soon I will be helping this thing grow vertically and helping it attach to the trellis. So look at this kale growing in this container. This is Blue Vates Kale, and I really need to thin it out so that I can add it to my salads and maybe make some kale chips. But look at the size of this kale to my hand. These plants have really started to take off in the last week. I thought they were starting to slow down because of the warm temperatures. They really don't like that, but they are looking good. I need to thin it out to give these 4 pumpkin plants some room here. Now, these two over here, they are looking great. You can see all the new growth that these have put on, and they are super fast growers, so it won't be long that I will be, growing these up the trellis as well. And then over here in this next container, I have 2 different types of cucumbers growing on each end. And in the center, I have some blue lake bush beans. And my beans, I did some succession planting so that they are growing at different stages. Now I have the cucumbers growing up these middle obelisk. And it is working out great. Their little tendrils are holding on, and I've just been trying to grow them down over the side and underneath, and they are doing that, and they have tons of flowers here, and I'm really excited about how this is doing. Now this is the Boston Pickling Cucumber, and you can see some here that I will be harvesting today. Now I could let these grow a little bit longer, but it's just so exciting to, harvest some cucumbers, my first cucumbers for the season. So I'm just going to go ahead and do those and maybe do some type of little pickling recipe. I don't know. It'll be really fun. Now over here are some blue lake bush beans, and they are doing great. Now you see the Japanese beetles are eating holes in the plants. So that is one thing that I do have trouble with is Japanese beetles. They drive me nuts. So the beans are still looking good, even though the beetles won't leave the leaves alone. The beans are growing well. Now, I won't have a large harvest, but I will be harvesting a few beans today, so that is exciting. Now, over here I have 4 Market More cucumbers plants growing, and you can see, look at this big guy. I have some cucumbers growing on these plants, so really exciting. I will leave this on for a few more days to let it get a little bit larger, but I'm really excited about how these plants are doing. You can see more little guys starting to form, so these plants are doing really well. So I'm going to swing on over to the other side because the way the sun is casting shadows, I don't want to make shadows everywhere. So going around this way, you can see more cucumbers starting to form. So really exciting. And then over here, back to the Market More cucumbers, more little cucumbers forming. And then these guys, I have really loved this obelisk trellis. You can see they're growing right to the top. And then down here, here's the second large cucumber forming. Love it. And then back here, another one. So these plants are producing and doing great. So really excited about my cucumbers this year and about the cucumber harvest that will happen really soon. So that is something I can look forward to, and just so excited that this container is doing so great. Now there is some yellowing of the leaves. We've had some heavy rains the last couple of days, which is, I didn't have to water, but it has turned some of the leaves yellow. So probably giving them a little too much water. And in this container, I'm just really thrilled with how these plants are coming along. I have in here a few pepper plants. You can see these are the California Wanderer bell peppers. Right now they're small and they're green, and you would not want to pick them now. But you can pick them when they're larger and they're still green, but they're much sweeter if you let them ripen up to the nice red color. You can see here, compared to the size of my hand, how small they are, but they are really cute, and I just love them. And there are tons in here growing on these plants. And I keep saying tons of things are growing on here. I'm excited. There's not really tons, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I have some bush beans growing here in the center, and they are at a different stage of growth because I have, like I said before, was succession planting them, so I get beans at a later harvest time. So over here, you can see some yellowing of the leaves of this cantaloupe plant. Now this is a single cantaloupe plant growing in this space. I'm going to grow it vertically up this trellis, and so far it is doing great, putting on a lot of blooms, and so I cannot wait to see some fruit production on this plant. And those yellow leaves, I can just trim those off. There's still plenty of leaves on here that will be able to take in the energy from the sun, so not a big deal if you cut off a few bad leaves here or there. So swinging back around to the other side, you can see I have some peppers over here growing. These are sweet banana peppers, and these plants are loaded down. These peppers are getting quite large on here, but I do want them to ripen up a little bit more. They will be more, sweet in flavor. So you can see tons growing on this. Tons once again, and I have them staked up here because once they start to put on a lot of fruit, that can really weigh the plant down, and I don't want to damage the plant, want the plant to break or anything. And I have 2 growing in this space. Pepper plants can be grown close together. I have 2 here in a square foot, and they are doing, you can see, just fine. And then over here, you can see this big guy growing. Now I could pick it at this stage when it's nice and yellow, but if I give it a little more time, it should start to turn more of an orangey red, and I can pick it at that time, and it should be, like I said, more sweet in flavor. So moving on down here, I have some Italian large leaf basil growing. Now recently I did a making basil pesto video and harvest, and it turned out so yummy. Now I did have to cut these plants down a few days ago when some Japanese beetles really was covering this and eating them. So I went ahead and knocked those off. I did give it a little trim and sprayed it with neem oil. So far so good. I haven't really seen any more on here, so we shall see how that goes. And then in this container here, I have it a little bit packed full, which is probably not the greatest thing to do when you're growing with tomatoes, but everything seems happy. You can see here these marigolds. I started these from seed indoors and they are getting huge. They're doing so much better in this container than some of the other ones. So in here I have also this beefsteak tomato plant, and this thing is doing great. Now I probably could do a better job managing the suckers, but you know, it is producing. You can see some tomatoes there, and then some more back in there, and then some out here, little guys. So this plant is doing great. It looks really healthy, so I can't complain. Now up here up front, I think I shared with you in a past video that my yellow pear tomato that I started from seed indoors, we got a really cold snap and it just did not recover. So I did start this one and from seed again, and so it's a little behind all the rest, but I'm happy with it. And it is putting on some flowers. So we shall see what kind of a harvest we get from this plant later on as the season goes on. Now over here are the last two containers. You can see a couple containers here in the back, some more Blue Vates Kale. And this one is a Black Beauty zucchini plant that I recently done a harvest video on if you want to check that out. And there are some yellow leaves on here, but those can be trimmed off. Again, just a little too much rain, but this plant is doing fantastic. Putting on more zucchini. I'll get down here and show you. There you go. So there's one and one right above it, a little smaller, and it's hard to see, but there are more on here, you know, starting to form. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that garden update. Now let's get to harvesting. So starting with the Boston Pickling Cucumbers, I showed you earlier that I have a couple of large ones on here that I plan to harvest. So the first one here, you can see it's doing so great. Now you want to harvest your pickling cucumbers when they are about 3 to 4 inches long. Now I think it's a good idea. I'm going to be using my Fiskars snips. Now you can use that or pruners, but I like to use something to remove the fruit from the plants and not just tug at the plants and tug at the fruit. You could damage the plant and that would not be good. And you know, using some snips like I am here, it really helps you to kind of get in there and cut that stem without cutting the plant on an accident. So once again, just getting my snips down in here, cutting that stem right above the cucumber, and making sure that I don't cut the actual plant. So it's really exciting to know that I can just slice this up and eat it, or I can make it into some pickles. And when storing, you can just wash these up and leave them out on the counter, or you can choose to put them in the fridge. It's whatever you prefer. So next, I'm down here. I wanted to harvest some blue lake bush beans. Now, I'm not going to get a huge harvest, but enough to give, you know, a little taste of what these beans are going to taste like this year. Now, any yellowing or nasty leaves, you can just, you know, discard those, trim some off, whatever you got to do that look not too healthy. But using my snips, I just want to cut right above the bean where the bean attaches to the bean plant. And this is looking great. So I'm going to add that to the bowl. And I'm just going to go through and cut off those larger beans, leaving the smaller ones to continue to grow, and I can harvest those at a later time. Now, that is what bush beans do. You kind of get a really good harvest over a couple of weeks, and then pretty much the plant is done. It's very different from your pole beans that you plant one and it grows all throughout the season, and you can continue to harvest those beans, all throughout the season until the cooler temperatures kill them out. So with bush beans, you just got to get in there, search for those larger beans, and snip those off. You can see one here, and I just add them to the bowl. And you can also see that I don't have these kind of supported or staked in any way. Yes, when the beans come on, they can weigh down the plant, but really not enough to hurt anything. I don't see a need really to stake these plants. So now I'm just going to get in here and go through and just get those larger beans and add them to my bowl, and I'll show you the harvest in the end. So here's my harvest so far. Not a huge harvest, not a lot of beans, just a couple of cucumbers, but I'm really excited to have it and to be able to harvest something from my garden this season so far. Now I'm going to go ahead and harvest some kale. So I wanted to harvest some kale because it is looking so good right now. So just using my snips, I'm just going to get in there and cut those larger leaves. You just want to cut the stems, and those larger leaves are usually the older leaves that form first at the bottom of the plant. Now as the plant grows, usually it has that center growth, and that is where the smaller or younger leaves form and grow, and you want to leave that in place so that the plant will continue to produce for you. And kale is just so healthy for you. You can add it into smoothies, you can make kale chips, you can eat it plain in salads. That's really how James and I prefer to eat our kale. And you can also cook it. So just whatever you prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and just harvest some kale. And I've just been really excited that I haven't seen a lot of, bugs and pests and things eating holes in my kale. So like I said, I'll just harvest some of this kale and then I'll add it to my bowl and show you what I got. So guys, look at this harvest. Look at that kale. There's just so much kale there, you can't even see the beans or the cucumbers under there. But James and I will enjoy this kale this week. I usually wash it up, dry it in a salad spinner, and then put it in a zip bag and put it in the fridge and just get out what I need, and it lasts a pretty good while like that. So guys, that is it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, place them down in the comment section below, and I hope you will subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future projects or updates, garden walkthroughs, and harvest videos in the future. I thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. So what's in this bucket, you might ask? You can see some Japanese beetles. So this is kind of how I manage my Japanese beetle problem. I have a little bit of water in here, and I just knock them off into the water, off of the plants. They'll swim around a little bit, and then I guess they drown because they stop moving. So that is what I do to get them off of my plants and, to kill them. And then I will spray my plants usually with some neem oil.